Hi all, it's Teresa in Gemma's house. Well, my quilt UFO isn't a UFO anymore. I finally finished it and I really am happy with it. And if you haven't seen my previous videos I did about this patchwork quilt, they are in my playlist that is called Quilting Stuff. And also, if you go to my main Gemma's House channel page and click on the videos tab, you can scroll through the videos and you will see them. I washed it twice in the washing machine and dried it. And it's a heavy quilt. This is probably my heaviest quilt. Probably because I used a polyester blanket as batting in it, so that added a little more weight to it. So if you're just learning free motion quilting, I figured you might want to watch me free motion quilt while I'm telling you this story. And in this video, it looks like I'm free motion quilting faster than I usually am. I think it's just the video. So let me tell you about this quilt. I've been making videos about this quilt, and hopefully you've seen a few of my previous videos about this quilt. I started free motion quilting it weeks ago, and then I put it aside, and I recently pulled it back out to continue free motion quilting it. But I decided to first quilt the entire quilt with straight lines to stabilize it, and so I could take the pins out. And that's where I am now to continue free motion quilting the entire quilt, and it's so much easier. But in the meantime, I had put the quilt on my bed to take some video of it, and I forgot to take it back off of the bed and close the bedroom door. And my older daughter's youngest dog, who is very hyper, she's staying with us for a week. And I just love her. But let's say she had a little accident on the bed. So I had to wash and dry the quilt before I continued free motion quilting it. And I usually don't wash and dry my new quilts until I'm completely finished with them, because after they're free motion quilted, then after I wash and dry them, they get that scrunchy texture that I just love. So I had to change my procedure a little bit. But that's okay, it's still working out fine. But one thing that happened that has never happened to me before, I forgot to put the foot down when I resumed free motion quilting, and I started noticing that something didn't seem right as I was free motion quilting, so I stopped and looked at the bobbin thread on the back of the quilt, and here I was getting these eyelashes. They're referred to as eyelashes, and it's because I didn't have the presser foot down. So I just took these stitches out and redid those areas. Wow, I can't believe it. I finished free motion quilting on this whole quilt today. I worked on it off and on for pretty much all of the afternoon. And that is the fastest free motion quilting project I've done on an entire quilt. So the backing fabric is 2 pieces of flannel, and for my bobbin thread, when I was free motion quilting the top, I used a dark blue, so it pretty much disappeared on this part of the backing. So I took note of where this fabric ended, and on the front it goes to about here. So when I was free motion quilting this, I stopped at this point because I had the dark blue bobbin in there, and I didn't want the dark blue thread to go on this area. So I now have a strip about this wide to continue free motion quilting. And it's not that important to free motion quilt it because I think this quilt will still lay really nicely even if I don't free motion quilt that small strip. But I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to continue using the white thread as the top thread as I'm free motion quilting this area. But because the backing under that area is this fabric now, I'm going to change the bobbin to this lighter blue so that it pretty much disappears. And that's new. That's something new. I haven't done that before on any of my previous quilt projects. And I originally intended to free motion quilt the entire quilt, but I ended up doing straight line quilting along this black border. And you know what? I think it's fine just the way it is. I'm not going to free motion quilt on this black border at all. And that will save me a lot of time, and it's holding down really nicely. So the only part I have left to free motion quilt are these small strips here. And since these areas are only a few inches wide, this goes pretty fast, and it's pretty enjoyable too because it is instant gratification and it's completed pretty quickly. So as I get down to the corner, I just continued free motion quilting in the same direction, and then the quilt was getting too bulky. So I stopped and pivoted the whole quilt so I could push the quilt away from me instead of to the side. And so now that I am completely finished with the quilt, I know to keep an eye on little Tessa when she's anywhere around my quilts. And I'm just looking to make sure that none of the fabric on the back of the quilt was buckled or puckered as I was free motion quilting. And luckily all the stitches looked great on the back, so I didn't have to repair anything. And Tessa was still sitting there looking very interested in my quilt. I washed and dried this quilt twice, and I was really curious to see after that how much it had shrunk. So it ended up being 94.5 inches by 95.5 inches. Originally 98 by 98 inches. So that was quite a bit. Thank goodness it still fits on my 15-inch mattress. So I hope this video was helpful for your quilt making, and maybe you got some ideas for projects of your own. And if you like this video, can I ask you to please give it a thumbs up? That really helps my YouTube channel to grow. So thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate the viewer support. Bye-bye.